Hi everybody, it's Sean Murphy and welcome back to my channel. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to find the middle of the cue ball. So let's jump straight into it, guys. The middle of the cue ball, what snooker's all about. We've talked about side spin before, we've talked about cue ball deflection, but when it comes down to it as well, you have to be able to find the middle of that cue ball and hit it in a straight line when you want to. Now, let's deal with the first question that I can already hear people asking. I'm not speaking just about you, Michael, but let's talk about, is the middle of the cue ball even a real thing? Does it exist? Because I've heard lots of players for many, many years talk about they can't find the middle of the cue ball, finding the middle of the cue ball is too difficult to find, and some people even say it's, it doesn't exist. It's like the Bermuda Triangle. Well, in my opinion, I think the middle of the cue ball is a real thing. I think there's a difference between knowing about it and being able to hit it. It's not easy to find, and of course, with it being, a sphere, with it being a round ball, there is only one middle. There is only one part of this cue ball that is the centre. Everything else will be applying some form of spin. So it is extremely difficult to find. Of that, there's no question. But it's definitely there and can be found. I want to take you back to where I started playing snooker. And this is an area of the game, this is a lesson, this is a routine that players don't really do anymore. It's one that Steve Davis and his father very famously did. And there have been lots of players that have done it over the years. And of course, I'm talking about over the spots. Now, the idea being here that to find the middle of the cue ball, to get the cue ball down the table over the spots, to hit the back cushion, and to come back over the spots, back to where you start, you've got to hit the cue ball in the middle. And there might be a degree of tolerance in that. If you hit the cue ball really slowly, you might be able to get away with a hair, a fraction of side spin, because that side spin might have died, it might have left the cue ball by the time it gets to that cushion and not take effect. So there is a small margin of error for this shot, but not much. And the more you increase the speed, the harder you hit the cue ball, the tolerance with that side spin will disappear. So this is the first place I'd like you to start. On your quest to find the middle of the cue ball, to search for that centre, this is where you need to start. This is where Steve Davis started. This is definitely where I started. And the object here is to hit this cue ball from the brown spot, no other balls on the table, directly down the middle of the table, and you're targeting straight behind the black spot. The cue ball comes back to you and should hit your tip. That's the second part of the routine, is once you've struck the ball, just with a, top spin, just above the middle. We're not looking to stun this ball or screw it. Just stay down on the shot and let the cue ball return to the tip. And if that cue ball hits your tip on the way back, then that's a really good effort. So let's stop the talking for a minute and see how close we can get to it. This is the first shot, first attempt. Down over the spots, I've stayed down, and the cue ball has come straight back to the tip. So in my opinion, from where I stand, I struck that cue ball in the middle. For me, that ends the argument as to whether the middle of the cue ball exists. I think I just hit it just then. Now, this routine gets more difficult the harder you hit the ball, as I say, and if I play a slightly harder version of that shot, the shot gets more difficult. I'm going to do exactly the same again. I'm going to play the cue ball up and down the table, over the spots. I'm going to stay down on the shot. I'm going to hit the cue ball in the same place, which is just above the centre. Obviously no side spin, that's the idea. But this time I'm going to hit it quite hard. And if I get a fraction of side spin, the cue ball will go to one of the sides and it'll miss my tip. Still might hit my hand, but it'll miss the tip, and that's what I'm looking for. So this time, let's have a second go at it. Nothing different except the pace this time. And there you see, the cue ball actually missed my tip on the way back up. And it missed the tip to my right. So I know now that when I tried to hit that cue ball in the middle, I actually hit it with a fraction of right-hand side. And that shows that hitting that middle of that cue ball is actually quite difficult. Let's have another go at it. Nothing different, straight up and down the spots. And all I'm trying to do here is hit the middle. Stay down. Oh, it nearly hit it. Nearly got it. Actually got closer to it that time, but still, just a fraction of right-hand side. Wasn't too bad. You know, the cue ball went pretty straight, but it wasn't perfectly straight. And that shows just how hard it is to strike the middle of that cue ball. Now, I want to put some reds on the table to show a little practice routine, how you can make this a little bit more interesting. You can actually use these reds as spacers to give yourself a bit of a tunnel to work through. Helps if they're equally spaced, I suppose. And now if you're just starting out, yeah, the ones by the black spot there is a little bit tighter, but this gives you a real guide, a practice guide to work through. To just try, and if you're just starting out, if you're just trying to find the middle, you can go through that gap and see how many times the cue ball can go up and down through the gap without hitting one of the reds. And of course, the better you get, you start bringing the reds in, you know, so there's hardly any room. This should be fun. This is going to make a terrible mess. I already know that. I'm not going to be able to do this. But now that gap's a lot tighter. But this is only what I was trying to do before and just try and hit the middle of the cue ball. To some degree, I've got to ignore those reds are even there. But let's try as hard as I can this time. Try not to hit the reds. And I have hit the red. So that's an example of just how difficult it is to find the middle of the cue ball when you're trying to do so. That's, you know, learning about how to play with spins is very important. Learning about cue ball deflection is very important. Run inside, check side is all very important. But can you hit the middle of the cue ball when you need to? That's what this game's all about. So let's move on and try and have a look at some other practice routines that you can use in your quest to become more consistent at finding that middle. Some of you may recognise this. This is half of one of Chris Henry's products, the balls, and you can find these for sale online if you want. I'm just going to use the cue ball here for this experiment. Now these balls were designed for this practice routine in mind, all about finding the centre of the cue ball. These balls that Chris made are extremely light, and so their tolerance for unwanted side spin is very, very low. I'm going to try and hit this light cue ball into that corner pocket, and if I don't hit it exactly in the middle, it won't go in. For comparison, I'm going to do it first with a normal weighted ball, and I'm going to try and hit the ball with no side spin. I fancy my chances of doing this. And it goes straight in the pocket. That's fine. But because these set of balls are so light, if I strike this cue ball fractionally offline, not quite in the centre, the cue ball will disperse much wider and it won't hit the target. So let's go for it. My target is where the leather of the pocket meets the cloth of the cushion. That's my target. You've got to be ultra specific. And I'm trying to hit the absolute centre of this ball. And the great thing about this product is that you're going to get immediate feedback as to whether you hit the centre of the cue ball or not. There's no guesswork. So let's see what we get. In my mind's eye, I'm going to play like a long stun shot. So I'm going to hit the cue ball in the middle, maybe just below the middle, quite firm, as if I was playing a long stun shot. And let's see what we get. There's my aim point. Really concentrating on the middle. Nice and easy. And I missed the pocket over there, didn't I? That means that at the moment of strike, I accidentally struck the cue ball to my right. And with that little bit of side spin, it pushed the cue ball way over to my left and it actually missed the pocket. Now, if I was using a normally weighted cue ball, that wouldn't have come up. You wouldn't have seen that mistake. But because these are so light, that's the great thing about them. They highlight that immediately. If you think back to the first routine that we were doing, up and down the spots, I got that wrong a couple of times as well, and that was to the right each time. So now as you're practicing, you're starting to perhaps see a trend and you say, well, actually, maybe I've got a thing in my technique. Maybe actually when I'm trying to hit the middle of the ball, I accidentally hit slightly to the right. So what I'll do now is, I'll replace this ball on the spot, I'll have my second go, and I'm going to do exactly the same. I'm going to try and do everything exactly the same, except I'm going to try and hit this ball now slightly to what will look slightly left of centre to me, because there's obviously a trend in my cue action today where I'm hitting the ball slightly right of where I want to. So what looks slightly left actually will be close to the middle. Let's see what happens this time. Aiming in the same place, I'm going to focus on just trying to hit this cue ball slightly to the left of what looks centre to me. And in it goes. That's a great practice routine along with up and down the spots. They're a great practice tool to give you instant feedback as to whether when you want to, whether you can strike the centre of the cue ball. And don't get confused. This isn't me telling you that you always have to play with plain ball. This isn't me saying you must always hit the middle of the cue ball. Not that at all. But when you want to, does the centre of the cue ball exist? I think we've answered that one. And two, when you want to hit the centre of the cue ball, can you consistently find it? Well, with these two practice routines, they'll definitely help you. I'm going to reset the table now for a third practice routine that I think is going to help you find that centre of the cue ball even more. Okay, so we've had two practice routines so far. The up and down the spots, that's the original. There's nothing better than that. That is the original, the OG, the daddy of practice routines in terms of finding the middle of the cue ball. You can hit that one as hard as you like and you'll always get the feedback. The second routine with the balls, I think is excellent, and that product has, changed the game, I think, in the last few years. A lot of professionals are now practicing with a set of those balls, myself included, because it just gives you that instant feedback. This practice routine is another great one because the feedback is straight away. Now, the idea here is that we make this shot obviously unmissable. I'm going to pot the red, that's fine. The idea is to play this with stun to stop the cue ball dead in front of the red. And that shows you whether you've struck the middle of the cue ball or not. I'm attempting to hit the cue ball in the middle. And the idea is to pot the red and stop the cue ball perfectly straight. So we're going to have a go at that. This doesn't look very difficult at all, does it? But the tolerance factor is, if we hit it perfectly in the middle, the cue ball should stop dead. If we strike it slightly off centre and the cue ball deflects on its way to the red and strikes the red slightly to the left or the right, then the red will go in the left or right half of the pocket and the cue ball will move. After it's struck the red, it will divert one way or the other. And you'll get, quick feedback as to what happened. But it's as good as the previous routine up and down the table. Let's have a go. Centre of the pocket, through the centre of the red, through the centre of this cue ball, little bit of stun just below the middle. That cue ball should stop dead. Now it did. Did it move slightly? Looks from this position as if it was very close to perfect. The problem is that with a blank cue ball such as this, with a plain cue ball, you don't really know. So what we do is we swap in the spotted cue ball, and this is where this comes into its own, in my opinion. See a lot of pros using spotted cue balls now in practice rooms all around the world, and a lot of pros are using this when they're doing lineups and tees. Now I don't really understand that. I can understand it being used for routines like this where you're trying to find the middle of that cue ball. For me, this is the absolute perfect example of where you would use this ball. And these are widely available everywhere. You can find one of these pretty much all over the place. Now, we're going to get instant feedback when I play this shot. I'm going to do exactly the same. It's a stun shot, medium firm, full in the face, middle of the pocket, through the middle of the red, through hopefully the middle of this cue ball, and we will get instant feedback this time as to whether I did or I didn't. So enough talking. We line up, centre through the centre, nice and easy. And you can see there clearly the cue ball spun away. So I tried to hit the middle of the cue ball, but on that time I didn't. I think I actually, a bit like the previous routines that we've attempted so far, I think I actually hit the cue ball slightly to the right of my intended strike position. So on its journey to the red, it veers off this way, pots the red in this half of the pocket, and the cue ball moves slightly to my left. And these are the small fractions that you're dealing with when you're trying to hit the middle. And of course, you might say, well, how many times do you actually try that? And the truth of the matter is, I very rarely try and hit the middle of the cue ball. Most of my shots are played with some form of side spin. Certainly most of the angled shots that I play. All of the straight shots that I play like this, I'm trying to hit the middle of the cue ball. But as you can see, it's not that easy. Let's have another go. Middle of the pocket, middle of the red, middle of the cue ball, stop dead. Well, everything went in a straight line, didn't it? But you could see the cue ball did actually spin on its axis. It was rotating. So even though everything went in a straight line, I didn't hit the cue ball in the middle. Now I'm going to have one more go at this. And I think this really highlights just how hard this routine is. When you hit it perfectly, and that red goes in the middle of the pocket, and the cue ball stops dead, and you've hit it perfectly in the middle, the cue ball won't spin at all. It will just stop. So I've seen it happen. I've done it myself. I know it's possible. I'm struggling to do it here right this second, but I'm going to have one more go at it. Middle, through the middle, and the middle of the cue ball, and stop dead. Nope. Very, very difficult. And doesn't that just goes to show you just how hard it is to hit that middle of the cue ball? Does it exist? It absolutely does exist. I think we've shown enough of that already. Up and down the spots is impossible without it. Potting the light cue ball into the corner pocket, I think, is impossible if you don't strike the middle of the cue ball. But that type of shot there, you could see, I still got the shot, still potted the ball, I was still in position for the next colour. But when you're trying to hit the middle of the ball, you could see that I actually didn't manage to do it that time. Now I'm going to finish with what I think is the absolute daddy of the routines. This one is the hardest. I think up and down the spots is the original and it's the best in terms of giving you feedback. But this is the most difficult. This one is so hard. And many of you will have seen this before. This now brings into aiming into the shot. This now brings into the, makes this shot very realistic because we've added the second ball. What I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and hit this red ball up the middle of the table, directly over the spots, to an imaginary pocket behind the black spot. I'm going to stop the cue ball exactly where the red is. Meanwhile, the red's going to come back up the black spot, back over the pink spot, and cannon the cue ball that's waiting for it. And that in turn will send the cue ball back towards me somewhere. Now, I've been doing this routine since I was about 8 years of age. And the idea is to, after you've hit the ball, to stop where you are and leave that tip in place. And as the two balls go up and down the table, they come back. And if you hit it perfectly, and I mean perfectly, that cue ball on its second time comes back and collides with your tip, giving you the return cannon. That's the goal. In my entire life as a snooker player, I think I've managed it maybe twice, maybe 3 times. This is extremely, extremely difficult. In fact, any time the red goes up the table and hits the cue ball on the way back, I think we take that as a win. This could take a couple of goes. Obviously, it's important to give yourself half a chance. Make sure the red's perfectly on the blue spot and make sure the cue ball's perfectly on the brown spot. This is all about alignment. Make sure your sighting's good. And then when I'm trying to hit the middle of the cue ball, can I do it? I've got to hit the cue ball slightly underneath the middle to get the backspin to stop it. That makes hitting the centre of the cue ball even more important. I'm trying to talk myself out of having a go at this. This is so difficult. I've only managed to do this 2 or 3 times in my entire life. Let's have a go. Any return cannon on the cue ball, I'm going to accept as a success. Well, I did get the cannon. The red came back and hit the cue ball, didn't it? So I'm going to take that as a success. But on the perfect days, when you get close to perfection, when you get close to the middle, that cue ball would come back much closer to my start position. I'll have one more go before we finish. But these are great routines. These are great things to take to your club. If you're trying to find the middle, if you're a believer and you're trying to find where the centre of that cue ball is, these are great practice routines. Let's have one more go. Straight up the spots, return cannon, and hopefully back to the tip. Oh, just got the cannon. Well guys, that shows you just how difficult it is, doesn't it, to find the middle of the cue ball. We started out with a couple of questions. Question number 1, does the middle of the cue ball actually exist? Well, in my opinion, it does. That, of course, doesn't mean that it's easy to find. It's actually very difficult to find, as I think I've demonstrated. But secondly, these are some great routines to try and help you find it. Don't be disheartened, don't give up. If you've tried to find the centre of the cue ball and you've found it difficult to do, just keep pushing on, keep doing over the spots, get yourself a spotted cue ball, practice across the middle of the table with a ball. You'll get instant feedback with one of those, and keep practicing, keep doing these routines to try and find the centre. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed the video. It's been quite an in-depth one, I know that, but I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, jump into the comments, let us know what videos you'd like to see coming up. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn those notifications on if you haven't done already, and I'll see you on the next video. Like, it's a sphere, of course it has a centre. What are they talking about?